my name is Stacy, and today we're going to talk about anatomy and physiology and why it's important that you as a skin practitioner or a licensed therapist have a thorough understanding of how everything you do will ultimately affect the body as well as the skin. So now let us go dive deep into what anatomy and physiology really is. Anatomy is the study of the structures of the human body, where physiology is the study of the functions of the body. And histology deals with the microscopic anatomy of the human body. So when we're dealing with the body as a whole, we should understand that each body system is interdependent on each other. And if one body system is not performing optimally, that in turn it will create issues and manifest on the skin with the other body systems that are acting array. As mentioned prior, I talked about histology, how it is the microscopic study of the anatomy. So with histology, what we're going to do is use that thought process to break down every part of the human body. So first, we're going to begin with the cells. Cells are the basic unit of all living things, including bacteria, humans, animals, and plants. To understand the cell, I would like for you to visualize an egg. The egg would be your cell. Just under the egg shell, you would find the egg white, which would be the protoplasm. The protoplasm would provide nutrients that are essential for these cells to reproduce. And then, if you go a little bit deeper, you'll find the egg yolk. That would be considered to be the nucleus. The nucleus contains our DNA. This is what gives us our hair color, our skin color, our eye color. It pretty much lets us know what type of genetics we're going to take from our family. And then finally, we have the mitochondria. And the mitochondria float freely throughout the cell, and it takes the nutrients and converts it to energy. There is a process called cell mitosis that allows the cells to reproduce. What happens, these cells would divide and reproduce two new cells that are called daughter cells. So we've broken down cells and what they do and how it contains the actual DNA of the human body. So what we're going to do now is group together a few cells and form tissues. You should know that there are 4 different types of tissues. We have the epithelial tissue, which provides a covering. If you think about the term epi or epithelial, always think of top, just like the EpiPen goes on top of the skin. And then we have the connective tissue that binds other tissues together. Then we have muscular tissue that deals with what? You've got it, the muscles. It helps contract different areas of the body and the muscles as well. And then we have the nerve tissue, which is the final of the 4. Nerve tissues are responsible for carrying messages so we can have those impulses throughout the body. There are several different tissues that bind together and create our body systems. There are 11 body systems, and we're going to go over them at this point. So first, let's talk about the integumentary system. That is the largest organ of the body. And what could that system be? It's the skin. You have over 9 pounds of skin on your body. So with the skin, it's important that you as an esthetician understand that you are treating the skin. And most times when things show up on the skin, it's normally indicative of something going on a little deeper into one of our body systems. So understanding how they're all interdependent on each other will give you a better idea of how to treat your client. Then we have the skeletal system. Without a skeleton, we would just be skin. Okay? The skeleton gives our body form. It creates a protective barrier for our internal organs. The muscular system deals with the muscles of the body. It allows us to open and close our fingers, that is adduction and abduction. It allows us to flex on a good day after we've worked out. The muscular system contains muscles that will contract voluntarily as well as involuntarily. So some of those involuntary contractions would be your heart. Your heart beats without your body telling it, or without you telling it to actually beat. So that is one of the muscles in the body that is going to beat as long as you're alive. There are some other voluntary, just as I mentioned when you're flexing and when you're intentionally raising your hand and opening your fingers. The nervous system is the system that is responsible for carrying messages to the brain to send impulses and say, hey, I feel pain, I feel heat, I feel cold. These are receptors. Our body has billions of nerve receptors. One reason why you need to know about the nerve is because when you're doing facial massage, you will be able to press on using acupressure, press on certain nerves to create a different effect in different areas of the body. So if we're working a nerve on the forehead, we're in turn telling the muscle, sending a natural impulse to the muscle to firm up, wake up. We don't want lines and wrinkles there. So they are very interdependent. Imagine if those muscles did not get the message from the nerve to actually contract. If you're doing facial massage, it wouldn't matter if that nerve ending is not sending that impulse. So it's really important that you understand the interdependence of these different systems. Then we have the circulatory system. Think of the term circulatory. What comes to mind? I kind of think of circles and how it's never ending, and I think of moving constantly. So the circulatory system is just that. It circles your blood throughout the body. It works together with the lymphatic and immune system because we also deal with lymph fluid. Lymph fluid is the fluid that allows toxins to leave the body. So the immune system, which is affected by the lack of releasing toxins, it doesn't have a pump. The immune or the lymphatic system doesn't naturally pump just like the heart does. So it needs a little bit of help from us as an esthetician. So when you learn to do different types of massage, you're learning to help the lymph move throughout the body. Whereas with the heart, you don't have to tell it to pump the blood through the body. This nutritive fluid, also known as blood, is pumped through the body, but sometimes it does contain these toxins. Without proper use of massage and releasing the body of toxins, even drinking water and being able to expel, excrete, and secrete these different toxins, it would make it extremely difficult for you to treat a client's skin if they have poor circulation. Poor circulation would normally manifest on the skin as maybe some darkness in some areas that have become necrotic and are eventually dying off. So when you have a good, thorough knowledge of what a normal, healthy skin looked like, or what great circulation in the body would be, then you're able to educate your client of the changes that may be going on with their body. So now we're going to discuss how the endocrine and the reproductive system are closely related. So the endocrine system is responsible for growth and development, and the reproductive system deals with hormones. These hormones are released into the bloodstream. In females, you have the ovaries and uterus. In males, we have the penis and testes. What happens when these hormones are released? We have estrogen that is released in females that will cause imbalances at times in the hormones. In males, we have testosterone that usually creates more oil in the skin. So it's said that men have thicker or oilier skin than women, and that would be your reason why. Finally, we have the digestive and excretory system. The digestive system takes in our food and breaks it down into smaller nutrients that our bodies can absorb. And what happens as these nutrients are absorbed, there are some things that aren't needed from the body. So that would be considered our waste. And the excretory system deals with waste and releasing waste from the body. So we've talked about the different body systems. Now let's break them down. The integumentary system we know is the largest organ of the body. It has 5 accessory organs. Those would be the sensory receptors, the hair, the nails, oil glands, and sweat glands. The word integument means a natural covering. So every time you think of the skin, just think about how it covers and essentially protects our organs and our skeletons and muscles as well. The skeletal system. Did you know that the cranium contains 22 bones? And of those 22 bones, 14 of those bones are found on the face. So let's talk about that and how you would need to know the location of these bones. First, we have the occipital bone, which is located at the base of the skull. Then we have the parietal bone, which is known as the widest bone that goes around the head in almost like a U shape. The frontal bone is right in front. You guessed it, right in front of the head. Then we have the temporal bone. So whenever you hear us when we're doing facials, we'll say temple frictions. That's located right here on the side of the face. And then we have the sphenoid bones, which are the bones located on the sides of the eye sockets. The muscular system. The muscular system is responsible for covering and protecting our skeleton. What you should understand about the muscular system that every muscle has these three parts: the insertion, the origin, and the belly. The origin of a muscle is located closest to the skeleton. The belly would be the larger area of the muscle. And then the insertion would be the area furthest away from the skeleton. There are three types of muscle tissue. We have the skeletal muscle tissue, that is the voluntary muscles. That means your brain has to send a signal to make that muscle contract. Then we have the smooth or involuntary. So those would be things like the heart muscle, right? Then finally we have the cardiac muscle that deals only with the heart, which in turn happens to be an involuntary muscle. It moves whether or not you're telling it or whether or not you're flexing that muscle. Muscle tissue can be influenced by massage. As a skin practitioner, it's important that you understand that the movements that you would do during a massage will greatly influence how the muscle reacts. So if we have some sagging or a little drooping in parts of the face, it's a result of a weaker muscle. And what do you think you would do if you want to strengthen your muscles? If you just want to get stronger, what do you normally do? You want to go and work out, lift a few weights or something, right? So we do the same thing when we do facial massage on a client. We have options of using dry heat and moist heat to help wake up these muscles as well. So an example of our moist heat would be our steamers and our hot towels. And then finally, these different massage movements that you'll learn here during your time here at Elise Aesthetics, you'll learn these different massage that will wake up different areas of the face. You also can use electrical modalities. One of my favorite would be the microcurrent. This sends natural nerve and impulses to the muscles that mimic the brain's impulses. So you're getting a workout for your face that you wouldn't normally get. There is a platysma muscle located right here under the neck that isn't attached to anything. There are a number of different movements that you can do to kind of wake that up since there is no flexing of that muscle. So things like your dry and moist heat, things like your roll pads for your massage, as well as the microcurrent can be used to lift that muscle instead of opting for a facelift. Since we are commonly dealing with the face and scalp, let's break that down. There are four muscles of the scalp. We have the frontalis that is located in the front on the forehead, which is responsible for raising the brows. And then we have the epicranius or the occipital frontalis, that is the muscle that deals with the occipital and the frontalis bones. Then we have occipitalis. This is the muscle that draws the scalp backward. So we've started at the forehead and now let's work our way down to the muscles of the eyebrow. We have the corrugator muscle. This draws the eyebrow down and allows us to frown and creates the wrinkles that we know as the 11s right between the eyes. Then we have the orbicularis oculi. This is any term dealing with oculi deals with the muscles around the eye. We have the levator palpebrae superioris muscle. It controls the eyelid, and this muscle is normally and often damaged during makeup applications. With using too much pressure, it will be affected by that. We're still working our way down here. So now we have the muscles of the nose. The procerus muscle lowers the eyebrows and causes wrinkles across the bridge of the nose. So if you've ever looked at this popular old show where there was like a little crinkle of the nose and they would like do the little tee-doo, this is the muscle that is responsible for that, the procerus muscle. Now we have the nasalis muscle, which is a two-part muscle that covers the nose and includes the transverse part of the alar part that flares the nostrils. Now we're at the mouth. Let's talk about muscles of the mouth. So now when you reference different areas when you're applying your makeup, since you have this better knowledge of these terms, we can now talk about these official terms when we're applying our makeup. The buccinator is the flat muscle of the cheek between the upper and lower jaw that compresses the cheeks. This helps us blow a whistle or to blow a kiss. The triangularis is known as the depressor anguli oris. This is the muscle that pulls down the corners of the mouth. This is the muscle that let us know when the little kid is a little sad. It gives a little sad face. The mentalis is the muscle that elevates the lower lips. The orbicularis oris. This muscle compresses, contracts, and puckers the lips. The levator anguli oris is associated with smiling. So if you're normally a human that uses your triangularis, that frowns a lot, let's turn it around and start using more of our levator anguli oris. Muscles of mastication. Mastication is chewing. This is what begins the digestive process. And because we know that these organs and systems are all interdependent, this muscle, even though we're in the muscular system, this helps the digestive system. So the main muscles of mastication would be the masseter and the temporalis. They coordinate to open and close the mouth and bring the jaw back and forward. The jaw, the bottom bone of the jaw, which we'll talk about in a moment, helps and has a lot of pressure within that area. So the muscles that are activated, once they receive a message, it's actually allowing us to start digesting the moment the food is into our mouths. The muscles of the neck. I mentioned before the platysma muscle that is located right in the front of the neck. It covers the thyroid area. This particular muscle isn't connected to anything. So it is very important that you learn the different movements that will assist in lifting that muscle. It's a very broad muscle that extends from the chest and shoulder to the sides of the chin and includes the lower jaw and lip. Then finally, we have the sternocleidomastoid. This muscle extends along the side of the neck from the ear to the collarbone, and it's responsible for helping the head move from side to side and up and down. The nervous system is divided into three main subdivisions. They are the central nervous system that consists of the brain, spinal cord, and spinal nerves, the peripheral nervous system that carries impulses and messages, and then finally the autonomic nervous system that controls involuntary muscle movements. There are two types of nerves. We have the sensory nerves and the motor nerves. Sensory nerves deal with nerve fibers, and it's important that you understand that you may have a client that may deal with sensory processing disorder. What this would mean that a client would not feel heat or pain as regularly as someone that doesn't have sensory processing disorder. So when you're putting steam on the client's skin or maybe using pressure to do extractions, it may not equate that you're probably causing pain. So it could cause a bruise on the client's skin or maybe something even worse. So you want to be mindful and ask those questions to a client. You know, if they are diabetic, that could be indicative that they may have some sensory issues. And then finally, the motor nerves allow the body to move. So if you think about a motor in a car and how it moves, these motor nerves sends messages and tells you to raise your hand. It tells you to walk forward or back up a little bit. Maybe you need to run. This is what the motor nerves will do. There are 12 pairs of cranial nerves. As an esthetician, you would mostly concern yourselves with nerves 5, 7, and 11. So now we're going to break down what those different nerves will do when you're applying pressure, when doing a massage, or even in your cleansing movements. The fifth cranial nerve is the largest of the cranial nerve and is also known as the trifacial or trigeminal nerve. It's also known specifically as the chief sensory nerve. And the way I relate that is that it runs all of the other nerves. The fifth cranial nerve, it's the chief. So it includes these three branches: the ophthalmic nerve, which affects the forehead, the eyelids, and portions of the scalp; the mandibular nerve, that deals with the muscles of the chin and the lower lip; and then finally the maxillary nerve, which affects the upper part of the face. As mentioned before, there are a number of benefits for massage and facials. When we're getting into facials and lymphatic massage, there are different branches of the nerves that are affected. We have the auriculotemporal nerve that affects the external ear and the skin above the temple. The infraorbital nerve affects the skin of the eyelid and the nose. The infratrochlear nerve affects the membrane of the skin and the nose. The mental nerve affects the skin of the lower lip and chin. Then your nasal nerve affects the point and the lower side of the nose. The supraorbital nerve affects the skin of the forehead. The supratrochlear nerve affects the skin between the eyes and the upper side of the nose. And then finally, we have the zygomatic nerve that affects the muscles of the upper part of the cheek. The seventh cranial nerve is also known as the facial nerve. The branches of this nerve will include the following: the buccal nerve, which affects the muscles of the mouth; the cervical nerves that affect the side of the neck and the platysma muscle; the mandibular nerve that affects the muscles of the chin and lower lip; the posterior auricular nerve affects the muscles behind the ear at the base of the skull. The temporal nerve affects the muscles of the temples, and the zygomatic nerve affects the muscles of the upper part of the face. Then finally, the 11th cranial nerve is also known as the accessory nerve. It's a type of motor nerve that controls the motion of the neck and shoulder muscles. So when we are doing our massages and doing acupressure, if we are touching on these nerve points or acupressure points, we will be able to provide relaxation for our clients. So the breakdown of these nerves are as follows: the cervical cutaneous nerve, which is located at the side of the neck, and it affects the front and sides of the neck as far down as the breastbone. The greater auricular nerve is located at the side of the neck and affects the ears, neck, and parotid gland. The greater occipital nerve is located at the back of the head, just like the occipital bone, and affects the scalp as far up as the top of the head. And then the smaller occipital nerve is also known as the lesser occipital nerve, is located at the base of the skull and affects the scalp muscles behind the ear. So now that we've talked about all of the different body systems and how they're all interdependent, we've run that marathon. Now we can sit back and use our respiratory system to take a deep breath. Let's take it all in so we can understand how this is all going to affect everything that we do. So the respiratory system, it includes the lungs and air passages, and it allows us to take in our deep breaths. We're using our diaphragm. When we ask our clients, take in 3 deep cleansing breaths, they're using that respiratory system. And it allows the diaphragm to fill the lungs with air, and then we are expelling gases. So we're essentially inhaling oxygen and giving out carbon dioxide. So it's important that you encourage your clients when they're feeling a little stressed. Let's use that respiratory system to take in 3 deep cleansing breaths. And after you've learned all of this beautiful information that we've provided, you can sit back, relax, take it all in, and treat your clients.